Just testing out some of the topside paint on the hull, the interior of the hull here, just to see what it would look like, and it doesn't look too bad. We're going to cover up this with foam-backed vinyl headliner anyway. This is what I came back to. The paint's pretty thin. The roller had paint on it, and I've never had this happen with paint before. I left it and it looked fine, but after obviously sitting here, after I was gone, and paint leaked off the roller onto the floor. Testing out the topside paint on the bulkhead as well, and as you can see, the left side wasn't primed. You can see the wood through it. The right side was primed, and it looks pretty good. Nice marine coating. Alright, so we got my good friend Phil here. He's actually brought a moisture meter because he works in water damage cleanup, like property remediation and that kind of stuff. So what we're gonna do, just for fun, is we're gonna take some readings.
So this is a thermographer. Test moisture content in construction materials, and also test atmospheric readings, humidity, temperature, surface temperature. It basically does a wide range of readings for you there. Alright, so we're doing our base rating here. This is the number that we're going to use for determining what's wet and what's not. We know that this area of the bulkhead is dry, and we're getting a 10, which is a standard, below. You want that usually below 16 for wood material. And so we're getting that there. So we'll do another test down here where we presume that it's wet because of the moisture staining we're getting. And we'll place that on there. As you can see, we're getting a little bit higher of a number, 24% moisture content, which is slightly elevated. And, to be expected down here based on the condition of the wood. Now we're going to test with the intrusive prongs.
This is going to get a better look of what's going on inside the bulkhead, right?
Yeah, this gets down deeper into the material. So we have our two prongs inside. So you can see it's showing a reading of 15. So here we are doing the reading at the bottom.
Oh, that's better than it was with the surface reading.
Yeah, and part of that could be the weather. Today we have a 70% relative humidity in the boat. So this is a more accurate measure anyways. So you see it is slightly higher than the reading we got up there, but not by much.
I imagine part of the reason why the readings are, a little bit maybe higher than you'd expect in a house is probably just because of the atmospheric moisture, and just the marine environment in general is probably conducive to a little bit higher moisture readings.
Absolutely. We're on the water. It's 70% humidity outside today. We have rain coming, so our measurements are going to be higher based on that. We're not in a controlled environment where we have air conditioning and dry conditions, so our readings are going to show higher because of that and the marine environment.
But overall pretty good, you think?
Yeah, overall
awesome.
dry.
Awesome. So as compared to the wood, that fiberglass is pretty dry, huh?
Yeah, it's a dry material. Obviously, the wood is going to have some sort of level of moisture content because it is a natural material and not a man-made material. So your skin is made out of water. The body is made out of water. So when you do a reading of your skin, it's going to show 100% wet. Now, I would be willing to bet that if we were doing this measurement at the hull level, where the water is touching the hull, we'd probably get a slightly higher level.
So look at that. We're now below the water line on the interior of the hull, and we're getting a reading of what, 21.4?
Yeah, it's showing a little bit higher because this material is in contact with the water, and so you are just naturally going to get a higher reading.
It's interesting. I wonder if that's bad. Does anybody know what the moisture reading should be for a boat that's in the water on the interior of the hull? If you know, please leave a comment and let me know. I'd actually like to find that out. So aside from doing all those really fun moisture readings, we are going to be installing a conduit back here, putting all this wiring through the conduit, and kind of cleaning up some of the wiring on the boat and doing a little bit of rewiring. And Phil's gonna just be here kind of hanging out and helping out, and just kind of hanging out for the day. So this is actually why we're cleaning up the wiring today. I installed a lot of new wire, but it's very messy. Hey guys, so I'm out of the boat today and I've got an order in from Sailrite and I have a couple pieces here of their foam-backed vinyl headliner and I'm going to be testing it out. The couple color samples, they both look pretty similar, but I think this is probably going to be the color we're going with. But what I'm going to be doing is testing the adhesion and how well it's going to mask over and cover up some of the inconsistencies in the glue and the fiberglass that have been left after removing the carpet. So this foam on the back of it should do pretty well to hide most of the inconsistencies. I'm thinking 95% of the stuff below it you're probably not going to be able to see, and I'll be okay with that. I don't need 100%. As long as it looks pretty good and we're happy with it, that's all that really matters. Just want to show you, see there's the thickness of the foam on the vinyl. Just wanted to give you a good picture of that. So the two spots I'm going to be putting the test foam up are going to be right here and right there, basically on the side of the hull and then on the ceiling. This is basically going to be the test before we do everything in foam back to the headliner. If this test is successful, that means no more sanding, no more trying to get this glue out. I can just put it right over it and it should look fine. So hopefully we're crossing our fingers that that's going to be the case. You're supposed to wait about 1 to 3 minutes for this stuff to get really tacky before you try to stick it up. And one of the biggest things, which I thought was funny, is that Sailrite actually says don't worry about overspray because the overspray cleans up very easily with the 3M adhesive remover. So, and I have some of that, so we'll see how that works too. So, I wonder, because I have some adhesive on the fabric, so I hope that it cleans up all the fabric. So, it's up there, and it doesn't look that bad. There's definitely some bumps you can kind of see in it, because keep in mind, that area that I put it on was pretty rough, so I wanted to see if it looked good in that area. That means it would definitely look good pretty much everywhere else, and it looks okay. I'd say you can see maybe it hides maybe 70% of the inconsistencies, so it's not as good as I would have hoped. But we're going to give it some time, come back to it another day, maybe let it settle. I've always heard that headliner kind of settles after you put it in, and it'll settle and it'll start looking a little smoother than when you actually first put it in. So we'll see if that happens. If not, then I might have to, try to get some more of this adhesive and stuff out of this boat. So I will do the second part right here. I'm going to do it right here over this little rough patch. This is probably the roughest part of any of the sides of our hull here. So I'm going to put it over this and partially over this to see the difference. This I'm assuming is going to be fine. This, you're probably going to see a little bit of roughness. So let's test it out. So now I've got this piece in, and to be honest with you, this looks great. This actually turned out really well. I think the issue with the ceiling one being a little bumpy is just I might have pressed down on it a little too hard, so I think it might settle out and level out a little bit with time. But this looks good. You have to really look at it to find any kind of inconsistency. So I'm okay with that. I'm happy with the way that looks. There's the ceiling headliner. As you can see, there's more inconsistencies. There's a big one that I'm looking at right here. So, now keep in mind this is the worst spot on the boat. So, this is the worst that it'll look. And I think I can safely assume that most of the boat's going to come out looking like this. There are just some spots on the ceiling that I'm obviously going to have to go over and get a little bit more of the adhesive out. But aside from that, not too much. I think this is going to be the way we're going to go. I also wanted to show you the finished conduit we installed. And basically, the boat is like 90% wired now. So this is our new panel that we installed. It's still got some shrink wrap on it. It's got some dust on it from sanding, so I just got to clean it up a little bit. But very simple. It's got 10 amp breakers in each switch. We installed this little 12 volt place to plug in our phones and charge them. Little 12 volt outlet. You can plug a little tiny little single outlet inverter in there or something. I just want to keep it simple. My biggest thing was I didn't like that the battery switch was in the lazarette, so I moved the battery switch here, and we have a little ammeter voltmeter, so because you can see we're at 13 volts. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it says 13 volts. And turn on the running lights. Now I need to get LEDs, but you can see our running lights are drawing 1.4 amps, so it's pretty cool. But I can see my current draw and my battery level. Also the same thing. Now this is something that wasn't hooked up before. We have two batteries. Now they're not hooked up in parallel, but I mean if I put it to all they will be. But they're two different ages, so I didn't want to hook them up in parallel permanently. So we're running off our house battery, which is charged by the solar panel, and then I can switch it over. Let's say that dies, I can switch it over to battery 2, which as you can see is at a little less, 12.6 volts. It's an older battery, but that is attached to our outboard and gets charged by the outboard alternator. So that's basically our backup battery in case our house battery dies. And this is what it looks like behind the scenes. Now, I know it's definitely not as neat as I probably would have liked it, but it's a heck of a lot neater than it was when I first got the boat. And all of this is brand new. So all the wiring, the panel, everything I've put right here is brand new except the depth sounder and the VHF radio. Still got to clean this wiring up here. Still want to clean this up a little bit, but there's our two batteries. That's the tiny little charge controller for the 15-watt solar panel. The wires go up there. Those are 10 gauge wires, guys. So 10 gauge wires going to the panel. As always, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, we're going to be testing out posting our videos on Fridays now instead of Tuesdays. We think it'll work out a little bit better for us, so check back next Friday for the next video.